Written down, the plot of Stuart Fails to Save the Universe sounds as if a die-hard The Big Bang Theory fan is recounting a fever dream that they once had. When comic book store owner Stuart Bloom accidentally damages a dimension-hopping device created by Sheldon Cooper and Leonard Hofstadter, he finds himself responsible for stopping the resulting multiverse Armageddon. It's a bizarre premise that will likely intrigue even the mildly curious, especially following the success of the franchise's previous expansions. Young Sheldon, which details the origins of the Cooper family, often gets praised more than the original, and its own spin-off Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage, a studio sitcom with a questionable age gap, has been renewed for its third season, premiering in October. With its wild plot, Stuart Fails to Save the Universe is executed much stronger than you would expect. It's charming, mind-bending, and it gives life to the Big Bang Theory's most overshadowed characters, placing them in the centre of their own adventure, and most importantly, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Plus, it makes you warm to Barry Kripke, which is no easy feat.
Stuart?
Denise? What have you been up to?
Robbing mostly. I'm still working on my screenplay.
The Big Bang Theory's most overlooked characters finally get their own story, except one. Across its 12-year success, The Big Bang Theory has been mined for concepts built around the core cast. Yet this time around, the creators have turned their attention to the series' secondary characters for inspiration. Stuart is an unlikely choice for the lead, despite being included in many of the later storylines after his comic book store burnt down. He largely functions as an even lower punching bag than Raj. He moves in with Bernadette and Howard in Season 9, Episode 12, The Sales Call Sublimation, to look after Mrs. Wolowitz, and the pair have a close companionship which satisfyingly creeps out Howard, an effective punishment for the first few seasons when he creeped out everybody else. But is Stuart a strong enough pull to hold up and sustain interest across his own 10-episode story? Kevin Sussman makes sure that he is. Stuart is hardly a traditional hero, but perhaps he's the most fitting character to lead a story about infinite possibilities, as throughout The Big Bang Theory he was defined by feeling as if he had very few. He remained fairly one-dimensional with his gradual character traits, including the introduction of his girlfriend Denise, played by Lauren Lapkus, feeling as if it came from the sheer longevity of the show, rather than because the production had a clear plan for where to take him. Sussman, however, understands exactly what makes Stuart work. He delivers all the quirks audiences hope to see, but the character is no longer simply the butt of the joke, and he gets to see himself succeed across multiple timelines. He is now also a reluctant leader, actually asking the others when did we start listening to me, and he tries to find his own happy ending with Denise. Joining Stuart is Bert Kepler Brian Posen, who previously lured Sheldon into geology back in Season 11, Episode 7, The Geology Mythology. It is satisfying to see him finally experience some of the success too, and watching him produce a CGI shark out of nowhere is exactly the kind of bizarre action sequence that makes this series so fun to watch. Sheldon's arch-nemesis also joins the crew. John Ross Bowie's Barry Kripke is still an all-round insufferable lech, but also has some of the funniest lines in the series. Keep an eye out for the Penguin. There are tropey lines about nerds trying to get laid, impressions of Barry's speech impediment, and repeated reminders that geology is cool, but both actors slip effortlessly back into their roles that you can't help be tickled by their return. The supporting cast is expanded further through Ryan Cartwright and Josh Brenner, both of whom previously appeared in The Big Bang Theory, but return now in new roles as comic book store customers. Their appearances continue throughout the dimensions, with their characters changing alongside each new reality, which is kind of cool. Brenner, who is known for playing Big Head in Silicon Valley, is an especially fitting addition given his connection to another celebrated comedy about a group of socially awkward, technologically minded nerds. Yet frustratingly, Stuart Fails to Save the Universe falls into the same character-limiting trap as the original series does, with Denise. From a performance perspective, Lauren Lapkus delivers plenty of physical humour on par with the other three leads. However, The Big Bang Theory's female characters are not given equal access to the nerd culture that it famously celebrates. Denise is arguably best positioned to participate. She works with Stuart in the comic book store, understands his interests, and naturally belongs to that group. Yet the series still reduces her role to the person Stuart is trying to win over and Barry wants to sleep with across timelines. After expanding the Big Bang franchise to overlooked male characters, we needed a female character whose purpose was to contribute to the central sci-fi story, rather than exist primarily in relation to the men. Sci-fi's not just for them.
You were telling the truth.
You didn't believe me?
No, not for a minute.
Stuart Fails to Save the Universe commits harder to sci-fi than expected, but that's also its weakness. The Big Bang Theory treated science fiction as the hobby its characters discussed, collected, and dressed up as, and Stuart Fails to Save the Universe actually makes the genre a reality, and on a much more impressive scale than anticipated. Stuart and Bert are immediately pursued by a giant moth as they wander through a post-apocalyptic Pasadena, which looks more akin to Prime Video's Fallout than anything you would expect from a comedy series. Other than the cast, the main draw of the series is its distinctive dimensions, and they succeed in holding your attention. Each new multiverse introduces its own carefully constructed world building, layered with familiar sci-fi staples, from a psychiatric institution so nauseatingly rooted in 1950s aesthetics that it becomes unsettling, to one with an AI-driven Big Brother-style overlord that zaps you when you experience negative emotions. Each dimension could exist in its own promising sci-fi film, and they're inspired by genre classics like The Matrix. Each episode really feels as if Stuart has stepped into the pages of one of his beloved comic books. As the story goes on, Stuart Fails to Save the Universe feels like one giant puzzle. The set design and the art department really deserve recognition, as every dimension is packed with Easter eggs and tiny details waiting to be discovered that you're going to have to watch it a few times. Whether that's through newspaper headlines or posters on the walls, or wacky comic book titles, some of my favourites being Doctor Strange Colorectal Surgeon and Richie Rich Effective Altruist number 12. The show constantly rewards viewers with the same addictive dopamine hit as scrolling through a social media feed does. There is always another reveal, reference, or surprise cameo waiting around the corner, yet that momentum means there is little time to question whether each storyline fully works or whether certain plot holes exist, as you're too busy wondering what could possibly appear next. But does that really matter? Across all 10 episodes, the journey becomes more important than the destination. It is less about whether Stuart actually saves the universe, and more about wanting him to turn the dial on the interdimensional device to discover where they end up next.
What's your plan?
No, I don't really have one. I'm kind of new to the action genre.
Stuart Fails to Save the Universe is all about escaping the boundaries of the Big Bang Theory. It's incredibly rare to single out a series title sequence, but with Stuart Fails to Save the Universe, as soon as the first one begins, it becomes clear what kind of show this is going to be. The sequences are packed with hidden messages directly communicating with the audience in the same way that Stuart is receiving messages throughout different dimensions that he needs to notice and understand in order to save everything. The entire show operates on this same level of self-awareness. It's deeply meta, almost to a trippy degree, and even references jumping the shark before we can get there ourselves. The title sequence caveats seem to highlight where the creators believe it succeeds, but it builds their concerns into the experience. Episode 10 takes this idea even further, becoming a genuinely mind-boggling meta-experiment, returning to the Big Bang Theory's sitcom roots. It even cleverly switches up the lighting, there's canned laughter in segments, and you get the Big Bang Theory transitions, which are a real treat for original fans. Stylistically, it is interesting for anybody who loves TV to see Stuart Fails to Save the Universe transform into something that is spent the entire series trying to be separate from, and then leaving it behind as another dimension. So does Stuart succeed in saving the universe, or are doors left open to more worlds and potentially another season? Stuart Fails to Save the Universe is less interested in whether he can prevent the multiverse catastrophe than whether a character who spent years being overlooked can finally become the centre of his own story. Its successes occasionally overwhelm an emotional core, but its biggest success is giving the forgotten corners of the Big Bang Theory a journey of their own. Whether we get another season or not, Stuart, Bert, Denise and Kripke have finally become their own entities, detached from the original series that created them, and you have no idea where they'll end up next. Also keep an eye out for 2.5 Women and Young Leonard. Stuart Fails to Save the Universe 10-episode first season premieres on HBO Max on the 23rd of July at 9:30 p.m. ET.